Welcome back to Thrive with Liv P. And today we will be discussing the incomparable Dorothy Dandridge. Born November 9th, 1922, Dorothy Jean Dandridge was an American actress, singer, and dancer. She was the first African American film star to be nominated for an Academy Award. This was for her performance in Carmen Jones. Dandridge was also nominated for a Golden Globe in 1959 for Porgy and Bess. She has performed to countless audiences at venues like the Cotton Club, the Apollo Theater, and others. Dandridge got her start early while performing with her sisters in a group called the Wonder Kids, which subsequently became known as the Dandridge Sisters, where she appeared in largely uncredited roles in various films. Hailing from Cleveland, Ohio, Dandridge was born to a cabinet maker and Baptist minister father and her mom an entertainer called Ruby Dandridge. Her mom, being a part of the entertainment industry, sought to create a song and dance act for Dorothy and her sister Vivian. Dorothy's parents separated before she was even born, and her mom subsequently moved on with the manager of the group, Geneva Williams, who was said to be incredibly cruel and would often discipline the girls. She was said to have a hot temper. There have been rumors of her also, unfortunately, abusing the children in a sensual way, as well as, just horrible rumors about this whole thing. And I believe this was honestly one of the catalysts to the problems that Dorothy had in her adult life as well. But it was a harrowing experience and an environment for the young girls, and it was very unfortunate. The sisters did tour the South and were part of the so-called Chitlin Circuit, but during the Great Depression had to move to Hollywood, where eventually they attended the McKinley Junior High School, and the group had a new recruit in schoolmate Etta Jones. So basically, they were the precursor to Destiny's Child, as young girls, dancing and singing, who were beautiful, dancing, singing, they were performing, and they were the Destiny's Child guys before there was a Destiny's Child. So, Dandridge's first appearance on film was at the age of 18 in Our Gang, and she had small roles in countless movies, both solo and as a member of the group, the Dandridge Sisters. In May 1951, Dandridge had a spectacular opening at the Macombo nightclub in West Hollywood. The success of her booking led to other successful gigs at the Café de Paris, and subsequently being discovered and booking her first starring role and appearing with Harry Belafonte as Jane Richards in the film Bright Road. Dandridge also performed in nightclubs and appeared on many TV variety shows, including The Ed Sullivan Show. Dorothy Dandridge was considered one of the most beautiful women of her time. They even referred to her immaculate skin as honey and cafe au lait, and she was called the Black Marilyn Monroe by many. The two were actually friends, which was controversial at the time. It was not considered good for either of their careers to publicize this, and that was unfortunate. Could you imagine being friends with someone and just because of the color of their skin, and because it's not good for business, you can't continue your friendship with them? Or you have to hide your friendship, I should say, because they did continue being friends all the way up until, Marilyn Monroe passed on. So they were friends for, and it's unfortunate that they had to think about that. Yeah, but honestly, a lot of people did draw parallels between the two of them due to their sensual appeal and their tragic, unexplained deaths at really young ages. So they had a lot of things in common. And I never knew the whole story of Dorothy Dandridge until I was doing the research, guys, for this video. And let me tell you, I was heartbroken when I found out the true story of what Dorothy Dandridge had to go through. But let's continue. Marlin also did take pointers from Dandridge, as well as her mannerisms and style. Dandridge was also one of the first Black students at the Actors Laboratory. This is in the book Dorothy Dandridge and the Legacy. The Actors Laboratory was a progressive dramatic acting school. To show you how hard it was then when it came to race relations, guys, Dorothy went through a whole lawsuit to prove that she wasn't sleeping with a bandmate of hers who was a white guy. And it threatened to end her career. Like, we don't know if this actually happened, but she went through a whole lawsuit to prove that she wasn't involved with this guy. But let's move on. Dorothy Dandridge was also rumored to be linked to Marlon Brando, and she was also rumored to be involved with Peter Lawford, and she was also great friends with Ava Gardner. Dandridge refused to play certain roles that depicted her in certain ways. She refused to play demeaning roles like savages, slaves, maids, mommies, and, she believed that she was worth something, and she knew her worth, and she refused to, take less than what she thinks she deserved. And I think that was very commendable. And she was also rumored to have said, "If I were white, I would have captured the world." That's what she said. And this is a quote from her. Dandridge made history again when she graced the cover of Life magazine on November 1st, 1954. And she also made history when she debuted at the Empire Room at the Waldorf Astoria on April 11th, 1955. After her sensational run at the Waldorf, they began booking other Black performers, including Lena Horne and Pearl Bailey. She opened doors for her peers and made sure that even though she was the first, she made sure that she was not the last. Because we've seen in this world, sometimes a person, they'll be the first, and then it takes 50 years before you see another Black person fill their role. But this lady, she opened the doors and she left them open so that people can come through behind her. I think that was amazing. She walked so that all of these new upcoming artists that are from today, and even the ones that came up just right after her, like Whitney Houston and even Beyonce, all these beautiful talented people that came up after her, she opened the doors for them, guys. She did that. So, moving along, Dandridge now has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. This is just amazing. She has been compared with such starlets as Beyonce, which I mentioned before, which lets you know her sensual appeal and the fact that she dominated her era and could command a room by just walking into it. Yeah. Some fun facts about Dorothy is she was very petite and she only weighed 115 pounds, guys. And she stood at 5'5". And guys, her favorite color was black. And her interests and hobbies were reading and traveling and dancing, photography, singing, and she enjoyed cooking. And she actually loved traditional soul food and preferred an African American diet of collard greens, potato salad, and fried chicken. You would never know this. She loved to entertain, and her favorites to cook were greens and chitlins. This is funny. I couldn't believe that when I read it. I was like, wow, that's so interesting. Dandridge was involved with the National Urban League and the NAACP. Wow, because of the racism and all the all the hardship that she faced as one of the first Black women in the entertainment industry, who subsequently, as I said, she opened doors for many of her counterparts and peers. Moving on to some of her personal life, Dandridge was married to Harold Nicholas, an entertainer that she met while at the Cotton Club. The marriage didn't last, but Dandridge did give birth to her one and only child, a daughter, on September 2nd, 1943, Harolyn Suzanne Nichols, or Nicholas, I should say. Unfortunately, the marriage was so bad that Nicholas abandoned Dandridge when she was going into labor, and she was stuck at her sister's house with no transportation, which resulted in her being late to the hospital. So it was all these things that, it subsequently led to her getting to the hospital late, and it was a traumatic experience for her, childbirth, and they had to resort to using forceps in the delivery room. And this whole traumatic experience, it went to the point where, as I said, they had to use forceps to get her daughter out, and it seems like this contributed to some brain damage that her daughter faced. She suffered brain damage after this, and it left her with a lifelong need to, for constant care in a hospital, unfortunately. And Dandridge, unfortunately, blamed herself for her daughter's imminent diagnosis and felt incredibly guilty. She felt guilty her whole life because of, what her daughter went through. And Harolyn wasn't able to speak, unfortunately, and later in life was unable to even identify her mother. This was one of the saddest, hardest things that I found out about Dorothy Dandridge when I was doing my research. But moving along, other men in her life were Atto Preminger, whom she met while filming Carmen Jones. He, however, refused to leave his wife because it would have probably ended his career to marry a Black woman, and she was even coerced into having an abortion when she got pregnant with his child, which also is another traumatic experience. She eventually left him as he was stifling her career, unfortunately, and after that huge rejection, she spiraled, guys, into drinking and depression. So unfortunate. This beautiful, beautiful, talented woman, all the things she went through, all the things that she had to go through, it's pretty heartbreaking. But Dandridge did marry again. She married Jack Dennison on June 22nd, 1959. After financial setbacks and allegations of domestic violence, they divorced in 1962. Her financial advisors unfortunately did screw her over and swindled her out of $150,000, and she ended up owing $139,000 in back taxes. This was also another sad thing. She lost all her money, basically. She was swindled, and they stole from her, and that was pretty sad. So Dorothy Dandridge was one of the first guys of the Hollywood Golden Age to be pretty much worked to the bone. She got robbed blind by people in charge of taking care of her finances, and she ended up losing her Hollywood mansion and couldn't afford the care for her daughter any longer and had to commit her to the Carmelo State Hospital, a place, guys, for the criminally insane. This was not a place that her daughter should have been. Yeah, that's a heartbreaking thing. Dandridge ended up having to move into a small apartment on Fountain Avenue in West Hollywood. And of course, she felt guilty and depressed after all this for having to take her daughter to the hospital and leave her there. And, she felt defeated, guys. After working all those years to then end up broke and alone, that was a horrible experience. And she retreated and she became reclusive in her, in her later years, which in her later years were not even that late because she was only in her 40s, to be honest. But she became reclusive and she only worked on a few occasions after that. And guys, suffice to say that her star had faded by this time. But in 1963, she was forced to play at a nightclub to pay off some legal fees. And she eventually filed for bankruptcy, and she emerged, guys, as a lounge act in 1964 in Las Vegas. She was in talks in 1965 to star in a movie about bandit Johnny Ringo. But Dandridge actually was supposed to take a flight to New York and to get ready for her performance on September 9th. And in a conversation that took place on September 8th, 1965 with her friend and ex-sister-in-law, Dandridge was said to be at first sounding optimistic about the future. Then she ended up singing the entirety of the song People by Barbra Streisand, to then saying that whatever happens, I know you understand. And if you've ever heard that song by Barbra Streisand, it's called People Who Need People Are the Luckiest People in the World. And it's a beautiful song. It's a sad kind of song in a way. So that's what she sang to her friend on the phone. And then she said, whatever happens, I know you'll understand. The night her manager Earl Mills discovered her bare body, and it was ruled to be an accidental overdose of the antidepressant, and I will not venture to say the name, guys. But the LA coroner's office concluded that she died of a fat embolism resulting from a right foot fracture sustained 5 days previously. So she was injured about 5 days before, and she ended up passing away. The legacy of Dorothy Dandridge. Dandridge was cremated on September 12, 1965 at the Little Chapel of Flowers and was interred in the Freedom Mausoleum at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park. She was only 42 when she died. As far as Dorothy's remaining family, her sister was supposed to be working in the south of France and apparently wanted to live a quieter life than her sister Dorothy. From my research, it seems maybe there was a bit of resentment to her sister's fame or something, because she apparently went away and Dorothy had to hire an investigator to find where her sister was. And as far as her daughter goes, it's sad she's still alive and living in the facility in California. There is a lot of information, guys, about the other family members and why it is that Harold's father and his family, they never helped out with her care, unfortunately, it seems like, and it was all left to Dorothy. In 1999, Halle Berry famously portrayed her in the movie introducing Dorothy Dandridge and subsequently won the Golden Globe and Emmy. Halle Berry dedicated the moment of winning the Oscar for Best Actress to Dorothy Dandridge, Lena Horne, and Diane Carroll. Both Dorothy Dandridge and Halle Berry were from Cleveland, Ohio, fun fact, and were even born in the same hospital. Dorothy Dandridge was posthumously awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in January 1984. Dandridge has opened doors and paved the way for many Hollywood starlets of today like Beyonce, Halle Berry, Angela Bassett, and so many more. Even actresses of a bygone era like Cicely Tyson and Marilyn Monroe looked up to her and revered her. She was many times the first to enter into certain spaces, and she held the door open and blazed a trail where there was none before.